Hey everyone, my name's Abby. I'm with LAN Masters, and we're here presenting the Stop Ransomware from Harming Your Orlando-based business webinar. So just a little who we are. We are LAN Masters Incorporated. We're a managed service provider in the heart of Orlando, just north of downtown in cozy College Park. Our combined experience here at LAN Masters is over 50 years of modern day IT experience. So we're able to perform a lot of tasks from anywhere from, and setting up a new computer to completely reconfiguring your entire server infrastructure. So we have expertise in server and network management. We have a focus in information security and safeguarding all your data. That ties into a lot of our partners, as well as ESET, one of the other presenters today. And we always put a focus on backup and continuity. So that way, if anything goes wrong, if your infrastructure dies, if you do end up getting ransomware, at least you have a backup and can continue to work once we get you back up and running. Our main focus in areas of industry are legal firms, insurance agencies, construction groups, medical offices. We have a lot of experience in these fields. We've actually worked directly with them for a long time. We've worked for them, but not to say that we only do those. IT is very, very broad and ever expanding, so we can do anything IT, but our focus is definitely those four categories. And I guess then I will just pass it along over to Anthony from ESET.
Thank you, Abby. So once again, I'm Anthony from ESET. I'm a sales engineer here, and I'm here to talk about ransomware. Now, here at ESET, we see pretty much everything there is threat-wise in the world. ESET has the biggest collection of malware researchers out of all the malware companies. And with that, we're able to see, obviously, the most malware and figure out how to catch the most malware. Today, we're here to talk about ransomware. So I'll go ahead and get started. Now, who hasn't seen this? You know, the dreaded, you have been encrypted, we want money screen. If you haven't seen it, you're very, very lucky. But the problem is it's becoming more and more prolific. Currently, there are over 2,000 known variants of ransomware floating around the internet, and that number grows by the hour. This is typically how it comes in. Via email, you get something from an address that you don't necessarily recognize, but it has some information that seems legitimate. It has an invoice in a zip file saying that they need you to check it for any inconsistencies or that a payment got denied. Some of the other more common ones are, here's some tracking information from FedEx, and it comes from an address that looks legitimate, but is probably just a little bit off, a little misspelling that might go unnoticed. Other methods of getting infected, though, because it doesn't always come through email, are things like infected downloads from known piracy sites. You might try to download your favorite song, a recent television show that came out, and it comes down as something that looks like the right file, but it's actually, televisionshow.exe or invoice.doc.exe. And once you double click it, the encryption begins. Typically, they tend to target pictures, movies, and documents on the hard drive so that the machine stays usable, your computer stays usable, but all your information, all of your important documents and photos and all your true invoices become encrypted. So that way they try to force you to pay the ransom to them. So next, paying the ransom. Once they get the malicious code to run on the machine, then they present their demands. Typically, they request Bitcoin, which is an electronic currency that can be sent and received anonymously. Once they verify they've received your money, which they usually demand hundreds of dollars, they send the decryption tool to recover your files. They usually are pretty reliable to send the tool. Otherwise, they'd gain a bad reputation, and then nobody would pay the ransom on there. But the problem is, the catch-22 there is that if you pay the ransom, they know that they can get the money in the future. So then they start targeting you for specific attacks. So how does this all work? So the attacker creates the malware with two sets of keys. A public key, which is something that he sends along with it, because it does require something that the attacker knows, so that way the attacker knows how to decrypt it. So they get the malware to run on your machine. The malware runs, generates a secondary key that it sends back to the attacker and hides from you. So that way, you can't reverse engineer what they're doing to unlock the files on your own. They use the symmetric encryption, the two sets of keys, to encrypt your files, and then the attacker receives all that information back, and it all gets removed from your hard drive. Then you pay the attacker. They send you a tool that has both the public and private key information in it, and they go ahead and allow you to unlock it with that tool. So how can you protect yourself? There's really two huge factors here. Because email constitutes some 99% of the ransomware attacks, email security is huge. Whether it be email security through antivirus software on your machine or across your whole organization, say at the Exchange server level or any mail server that you happen to be running. Spam or malware, and specifically ransomware, is really easy to identify as spam. We know the senders. We know the places this stuff is coming from. We know all the pieces and parts involved in getting the ransomware to you, whether it's sender origination, whether it's message content, or the attachment itself. So getting a good security solution in place for email is crucial, and it makes life really easy on the back end. Now, if you don't have control of your mail server, or say you're using something like Office 365, something in the cloud, or even you're just using Gmail, you can use something like endpoint security, a piece of software, your antivirus, anti-malware solution on your endpoint, to also protect you against this. Typically, all of us AVs come with email scanning for infected attachments, and then from there, it also won't allow the malware to run. It's going to block it when it tries to run. So with that being said, who is this guy that's been talking to you for the past 5 minutes here? Who is ESET? ESET was established in 1992, and actually our original NOD engine was written back in 1987. We became a company in 1992. We have over 1,300 employees worldwide and partners spanning over 200 countries. And what are the benefits of going with ESET? Well, we're one of the fastest growing endpoint protection suppliers with a 22% year-over-year growth rate from 2011 to 2015. Why do I put that in there? Because along with our sales growth, along with being able to protect more and more endpoints worldwide, our research has grown. And when research grows, when we find malware first, when we create engines and tools to get rid of malware before anybody else can, it protects you better against zero-day threats. As I mentioned, ransomware is gaining traction by the hour. We're seeing more and more variants by the hour. The quicker that we see those variants, the quicker we learn how to detect them and we stay out in front of them, the better off you are as a customer. We have the most complete platform coverage. So whether it be Windows, Mac OS, Linux, iOS, or Android, we've got coverage for each of them, and not just a product out there. We don't just throw a product out there just to say that we have an Android product. We've gone through and taken our engine and our definitions, and we've allowed them to span all of the platforms. So if you have a Linux machine that's in your environment, it can detect all the same threats that the Windows and Mac can, even if it's not specifically Linux targeted. We have the highest detection rates. Once again, it all goes back to our research house. Our research team is able to get in there, make sure that we're getting out in front of everything and detecting things as they're hitting the open internet. But along with that, the lowest false positives. I mean, it's key that we still allow you and your employees to do your job, and we don't get in the way, and we don't continually quarantine good Excel documents or software that you need to do to function you need to use to function as a business. And along with that, the lowest footprint. So we keep your employees working without slowing them down. And we also have our own detection engine, proprietary technology. I mean, there's a lot of vendors, AV vendors on the market today, and a lot of them purchase the semantic engine, the McAfee engine, and then they write little customizations to it and sell it as their own. That is not the case with us. And we've been around for 30 years. We're a privately owned company in the European Union. I'm not sure if you're familiar with some of the legal landscape out there, but us being removed, we have been able to stay out ahead of A lot of the exploits and regulations that are being imposed on security to allow things like backdoors and whatnot, we're able to stay completely out of that and keep you secure. What do we offer? What kind of products do we have? From the endpoint side, of course, as you saw earlier, Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Android, antivirus, and mobile device management. And then iOS, it says MDM only. iOS doesn't allow, or Apple doesn't allow antivirus on the iOS platform, but we do have mobile device management, which does include things like application management and security management. On the server side, which as I was mentioning, this is crucial in protecting against ransomware, but mail security. So integrate with your current Exchange environment and scan incoming emails for spam and infected attachments. File security, which is our standard Windows security setup. SharePoint security. This can also be crucial if you have a SharePoint environment. You're allowing your users to upload and download files to and from. Virtual security. So if you do have a virtual environment, VMware, Hyper-V, we have products to protect that environment. And then gateway security, which is a platform that you use to filter all of your network traffic. So the breakdown on the endpoint product is really three pieces of technology: the web and anti-phishing protection. So when it comes to ransomware, it's all about fooling the end user into executing your code. So we want to make sure that the end user doesn't hit websites that can open them up to being attacked with ransomware. We want to make sure that they're going to the right link, specifically with anti-phishing, because we want to make sure that when they're actually going to wellsfargo.com or fedex.com through a link in the email, we want to make sure that takes them where they expect to go, and we can block it at that level. Email client protection, once again, this goes back to attachment scanning and spam filtering, and then real-time file system protection, making sure that anything that's running on the machine, anything that your end user double clicks on, is scanned and ensured to be not malicious. Here's an example of our blocking at the web level. You'll get the notification. It'll tell you what's wrong and why it's not letting you go there. So with the web protection, it's not just a standard blacklist. We actually work within the Windows operating system as a system level driver. So we can scan sites in real time. We can analyze not just the page and the address, we can analyze everything on the page. So advertisements, where those links go. So in some cases, if you're on some sketchy websites, you'll notice some advertisements might be blocked right off the bat. And then we also have an exploit blocker. So things that are network aware, say Adobe Acrobat or Java, we're able to keep those from being exploited on the internet. Now here's a look at our email client protection settings. It's rather boring, I'll be honest, but this is by default turned on the endpoint. And I say that because we send everything out the door. Every one of our products installs at best practices. So there's very little configuration that needs to be done to get you up and running and at maximum protection with ESET. So here's the timeline of our technology. 30 years ago, 1987, our NOD engine was created. In 1995, we created heuristic detection. Now, one of the buzzwords that you hear a lot is next-gen antivirus. They work on behavior and mathematics, and we started doing that in 95. And to be honest, within 10 years after that, a lot of the other antivirus vendors started using heuristic technology. So it's really not that new. But in 2002, we were really able to skyrocket with that technology, with the advanced heuristics and true behavioral detection. So we've had, and once again, this goes back to the research, we've had a ton of time to work on and perfect the technology. From there, we added DNA detections in 2005. Now, this is one of the real fun technologies because its DNA detections takes a look at the base level of what a piece of malware does. So take ransomware, for example. It downloads the key. It kicks off the encryption service. It sends information back to the attacker. It drops a dropper file so that way you know how to pay the ransom. We broke it down to those base 4 items. So we know that if something is hitting or has 3 out of those 4 behaviors, we know it's ransomware already, so we can knock it down. So one of our signatures, one of our DNA detections can stop over 20,000 known variants of, and even more unknown variants of ransomware at this point. In 2012, we advanced into network attack protection because the next way after email to get stuff onto your machine is through the network. In 2013, we expanded into advanced memory scanning, exploit blocking, device control, DNA hashing, which I won't get into all of those individually. But essentially, the idea is we want to make sure that regardless of how it comes in, we can catch it. Same thing with botnet protection in 2014. And then in 2015, we expanded into networking and virtualization with our shared local cache and network detection. Here's a quick view of our multi-layered approach. We have the continuous, the real-time protection, behavioral detection, our live grid file reputation service, which is our cloud, connects directly to the malware lab, and then machine learning. So your machine caches what it sees. If it sees it again, it knows it's bad, along with our pre-execution and our post-execution layers. So blocking at the network level, blocking it from even getting to your machine. What happens if it gets to your machine? Well, we're able to sandbox it, take a look at what it's going to do, and then make a decision on it then as well to shut it down. So typically a threat has to get in through the network, pass our live grid file reputation checking. It would have to not match any of the DNA detections. It would execute, and then we have a chance to pick it up via exploit blocker, unpack it into memory, check it against our cloud malware protection system. And then if it's a bot that keeps that actually gets there undiscovered, then we're able to shut it down, keep it from talking to its main server. So it has a lot of steps that it has to jump through in order to get past ESET. And with our detection ratings, that I would definitely say, research us, see what our independent reviews look like, because with our detection ratings and our false positives, nothing ever gets this far. So why do people choose ESET? Small footprint, lightweight, proven protection efficiency, lower support needs, lower cost, and multi-platform support. Multi-language support, which in many cases here in the US, not a big deal, but we do support over 100 languages. And then our quality of customer service. That's one point I'd like to stop on real quick, because we team up, with LAN Masters. We make these decisions because we know that their team can support you in a way that aligns with our visions, and that we can work with them properly to make sure that your experience is the best experience possible, and that you feel safe and protected, and that you are safe and protected. So thank you for your time.